I'm going to talk just briefly, we'll kind of go through a little bit about social media, and then we'll just jump right in on how to, because it's all about content, and the reason that we're here is because even if you write great content, and it's not in the right place, nobody's going to see it. So we're going to go through the bad news, which is that everything on Facebook, or the social media, it's really hard to get noticed. But if you have good content and you leverage it properly, then you can get some good traction. Right now, for every 100 people that follow your page, only 6% of them are seeing your stuff. That's what's been happening, and that percentage is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, despite really the only way to get noticed nowadays is to boost your post and pay for it, which is a pain in the neck, especially if you're trying to launch something. So the thing that you need to understand is how it all ties together. And Facebook has an algorithm, it's called EdgeRank, that decides what people see. So it's based on the interest of the connection between you and the person that's going to see you. So, for example, your best friend will see all your posts just because your best friend likes your stuff all the time, and it's this integral relationship that Facebook recognizes. That Facebook recognizes your spouse, it recognizes your friends. It knows. It's really quite remarkable. It knows who you like and who you don't like. The post, then also how much traction the post gets. Obviously, the more traction your post gets, the more people you see that see your post. And then it's starting to get into this in the EdgeRanker now. So it's millions of lines of code that decide this. It's a very complex algorithm that's based on about 10,000 different factors, but these are kind of rolled up. The creator of the post, how influential you are. So I've noticed, because I write a blog post, because I post and people like my stuff, I'm a Facebook slut, I'll friend anybody. And the more friends that you have, the more stuff that people like. It starts to recognize that you are someone that has a voice within your social network. So it'll push your stuff out. Because what Facebook is really trying to do is it's trying to deliver content that other people want to see. So if they recognize that you are a creator of good content, then and people like whatever you create, then they're going to push that out to your network more often. The type of your post, whether it's a link, it's a photo or a status, photos get the most traction because Facebook, this is actually a dissertation topic, back when media, like back in 2007, when Facebook really hadn't even gotten what it is today, wasn't even close, how people engage with online, like building online relationships using different types of media. And images, obviously, are the best way, because you can really look at an image and pictures can say 1,000 words. So the type of posts, and also, obviously, how recent it is. All right. So those are kind of the big picture when you're creating stuff. And think about that creator piece, because that's why it's important that you become more comfortable with writing. So you can boost your posts right now. You can join the conversation on Twitter to push your stuff out. You can do lots of different things to connect with your audiences online. But
Can you ask a question?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, when you post out a photo on a business page, it's like your personal pages too. There's always an option that you can boost it, so you pay $25 and people can see it. So I do that with my blog posts, and we'll talk about that at the end. So whenever you post something on Facebook, because if you're creating anything, I always tell people to go out to Facebook and be Facebook, because be on Facebook, be present on Facebook, because all of the other the research shows that if you're going to be on social media, you're going to be on Facebook and something else. But you're not going to go out and be, very few people other than the younger generations are just on Instagram or just on Twitter. They also have a Facebook account. So you get more bang for the buck. And when you're just starting out a business, really it becomes so overwhelming to try to be everywhere in the social media. Just focus on one. Facebook has every statistic hand down will show you that Facebook has more traction. People spend more time on Facebook. There are more people on Facebook. There's more of your demographic. The people on Facebook are the spenders. Like, you can chase after people on Instagram, but they're not your big spenders. They don't have the cash flow that the demographic on Facebook has. So I always just say, go to Facebook first. And then maybe, depending on your business, like Twitter, it's a little bit of a nuance. Twitter's more of a conversation, and if you need to be in a conversation, yeah, you can bounce down, but Twitter's a lot more work than Facebook. But Facebook has a boost. You just pay, and when you boost on Facebook, you can also choose your demographic, and we'll talk about that when I actually get into what we're doing. So I'm just kind of running through this stuff to give you a little bit of a foundation. When you are writing, and we'll talk about, this is my advice here, and then I'll talk about how I did it. And I'm only going to pick one slice of my life because I wear several different hats. But create a voice and be your voice. Be that thought leader. All right. I always like to do the how stuff works for like make simple things. You guys have to think about each one of your businesses and your products that you're selling or what you're trying to accomplish. And sometimes it's complicated, and so be that voice on how to make it simple so that people can understand what you're trying to sell, or in the industry. I do a lot of that. Very simple, like don't use big words, just very, and if you need advice on how to write simple, just go to How Stuff Works, because they do it all the time. They take, like, you know, how cell towers work, and they make it into something that you can understand. But be that person that helps your followers understand some part of your industry and some part of why they need to be your customer or have a relationship with you. Listicles are great things. I do listicles all the time. The best time to do as a listicle is if something's happening in the news cycle, and you can.
Can you just, I don't know what listicle is.
Oh, like 5 reasons why you should eat yogurt for breakfast. 5 of the top, and usually like do it between 5 and 10, like 8 reasons. The studies show that if you have 8 reasons, it's better than having 10 reasons. So, so like between 5 and 10. So listicles, if you can, something's trending in the news right now. You know, okay, Black Lives Matter is trending in the news. So that would be something that you could do if your product could tie into that. Then go with that. Or what is another thing that's trending in the news right now?
Politics.
Politics. Well, I wrote a blog post because I wear lots of different hats. I'm a program chair for New England College of Business. Over there, we've got, I'm the program chair for the digital marketing program. We also have a social entrepreneur program, and now we're starting a master's in big data analytics. My PhD is in computer science, which is completely unrelated to writing at all, although I did have to write a dissertation. I wrote a blog post recently on how if Hitler had the same access to technology that the 2016 candidate would have. And I just kind of hashed this out just because it was something that I was interested in, and I wrote it on. And it's really interesting because I did a lot of this research back, you know, over the years. But now that I'm working on the master's in big data analytics and we're doing a certificate program, I'm really kind of diving in, and I'm going through these data sets, and I'm like, whoa, because you could, the government could actually shut off. Knowing what big data, the capability of big data, the government could shut off your power in the middle of the winter if you voted for, if you showed preferences for a particular candidate on Facebook. So, like, for years, I never like anything about a political candidate, and I never like anything about gun control. I stay out of politics. I never click that like button, because big data analytics someday could get that. They collect all that data. It's stored somewhere, and so I wrote a blog post on like, you know, so let's say Trump wins and he decides that everyone that didn't vote for him is going to freeze in the middle of January. He could take a list, you could get access to all of that, and you know, and because the power grid systems are all based on technology, so I wrote that blog post, and so that's something that's trending, and we'll see. It's all about getting people interested in what you're writing and wanting to share. So, anyway, listicles are a great way to, or that was like the top 5 reasons that we should, or the top 6 reasons, because we're not going to do 5, we're not going to do 10, 6 reasons that you should be more concerned about the presidential candidates. And then what you also need to have some sort of mechanism to reach out and to people email, because There are times on social media where just it's kind of flatline, and it really, like, you know, there are some times where it just seems like things are getting a lot of traction, and other times it's flatline. But email is still the #1 way to reach people digitally. It's don't rely on social. Be also having an email, collecting emails all the time, doing newsletters, keeping people connected with what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. I use Constant Contact. I love Constant Contact because you can do I do a regular newsletter. You can also create your events there, and then it will tie in so that when people read my blog post, there's something that pops up and says subscribe here, and you can have people subscribe directly to my Constant Contact list, and also on my Facebook page. I connect with Constant Contact. So if someone joins on my Facebook page, it goes over into Constant Contact. And I think Mail Munch and Cake Mail are the same. Those guys are free. Constant Contact, it depends on the number of emails addresses that you have. Constant Contact, they don't have any free version, but the other two do. However, as soon as you get up over 2,500 email addresses, then yes, you're going to have to pay. The rates are equivalent to Constant Contact. If you do a lot of stealing of emails, Constant Contact is really difficult as far as they put you in timeout if too many people unsubscribe or complain that you're spamming them. So these are some things to think about, because that's the channel for whatever you're going to write. Is your email people is like a hierarchy. People that follow you on Facebook, they kind of like you, whatever. They just click. The only way that they have to connect with you is they have to hit the like page on your page, and they like you. The way that they give you an email address, that's much more of a commitment. And so the email, if you've got them following you on email, and especially if they open your emails, and you could go in and see who's opening, then you've got a customer that's in the works. So.
Do you like MailChimp, or did you leave it out on purpose?
There's so many of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
I use Constant Contact. I've looked at all of the other ones.
Okay.
The subtitle, add the subscribe to your blog. Anytime if you're writing blogs and you've got people on there, have something. Mine scrolls, as you scroll down my blog, it kind of goes down with you until you shut it off. Really, that's a good time to get people. Some people put that thing at the bottom, but very rarely, and you'll notice from your own behavior, if you're reading something that you're really interested in, by the third paragraph, it's just human nature nowadays, is our attention spans. The average attention span, it used to be, I don't know the exact numbers, but back in like 5 years ago, and maybe 2010, it was 12 seconds, and now in a 5-year span, it's dropped to 8 seconds. So it's getting shorter and shorter. So don't put your subscribe at the bottom. Always put it so it scrolls, because people lose interest halfway through. Even though they're very interested in your blog, it's very rare that they make it all the way to the bottom. The other thing is tying this all together, because this is just a little bit about social media. And when you become great writers, you may want to go back to one of her, Christina's social media, because it'll help you with all of how to actually put this into working together. But one of the things you can do is I can take my email list. I have 69, I've got a couple different Constant Contacts, but I have one for NECB, my college and digital marketing, that stuff. And I also put one for the Equine Rescue Network, and also another nonprofit that I work with. So I've got all of these email addresses. And what I can do is I can take them, and each email address, and one I've got 3,000, another 7,000, and another about 8,000. And I can take these things and I can load them up into Facebook audiences. So I have 3 different types of people. You can create 3 different audiences. So if I'm doing something on, because I run a horse rescue, we'll look at that in a minute. If I'm doing something horse related, I target my Equine Rescue Network list. And then what you can do is you can create a lookalike audience so I've got 7,000 email addresses that are horse people. And then I can tell Facebook, find me other people that look just like people in this list. Like Facebook will go through, when their magic little black box will say, these people all have this types of demographics, they're this age, this thing, and it's not just that they're demographic, but Facebook knows so much about us, so much about us, that it uses that very complex algorithm that they keep in a black box to find people that look just like this audience, and they can start receiving your blog post and whatever you're writing. So that's a really good strategy that's pretty easy to do.
So you're actually uploading the emails that you have, and Facebook is finding those people and then profiling those people and finding more like them.
Yes,
okay.
yeah. And this gets, because this is part of my strategy, is I write a blog post, I push it out on my newsletter,
Yeah.
but I'm only reaching people that already know me. So now I can reach people with that blog post through boosting. Because in the boost, when you do a boost, you could say, I want to boost my lookalike audience. And so those people will get my listicle.
I've actually had horrible success with boosting where they end up reaching fewer people than I do organically. Like I feel like I'm paying to reach my own friends when I boost it. Whereas I've had side-by-side posts where I'll reach, 4 times as many people organically than I will by paying the money, and I end up feeling like I wasted the time and money.
Well, that's where I would suggest you start really exploring audiences. And if that's happening, it's because your demographics aren't set up. You're not going after the right demographic.
Okay.
Do you have an email list?
I do.
Yeah, I would recommend doing that lookalike audience. And if you just Google lookalikes, you can probably figure it out how to do it. That just came out in 2015 or 16. That's a recent, the lookalike thing is a recent thing for Facebook. And I've had good success with it.
So I take my list and I go over to the Facebook page and it says audiences. How do you load your list into the Facebook page?
Yeah, it's, you go into the audiences and then you go, if there's a create an audience button, click on that and it'll say, give me an Excel file.
Oh,
okay. And you'll upload your Excel file. It's a browse for a file. You'll find your file. It uploads. And then there's a lookalike button. Once you've created your audience, then you go into that audience, and then there's another button that says create a lookalike audience.
Okay.
And
so it's an Excel file.
You can with Constant Contact, you can download your list of email addresses into a CSV file, and you'll have your list of 7,000 email addresses in some sort of format. Just save that to the hard drive, and then when you go into your audiences, your ad manager audiences, and then you can upload it. If you want it, like there's how-tos on this, and also Christina teaches exactly like workshops that will step you through this whole process. But it's a new thing, nobody's using it, and the challenge about marketing and getting your word out is you got to stay ahead of what everybody else doesn't know yet, and that's one of the things that people don't know, and it really has. It's been very useful to me, and I went to a Facebook thing in 2014, and they said they were going to come out with this, and I just kind of Googled Facebook lookalike audience, and as soon as they released it, through Facebook there's a help, and it was so simple to do. People are always like, oh my God, you have a degree in computer science, and I'm like, no, that's an old degree. I can barely use my phone, so I'm not like that. Like the computer science, I learned how to design, architect systems, not use a phone or social media. So I'm just as challenged as everybody else. All right, so the other thing that I found helpful is I never use a subject line that's like, welcome to my newsletter or July newsletter, because how many people see that coming in and you're like, shh. I always use, a lot of times I just use like acronyms like ERN or CLT, and people, like, it might not even mean anything, but when you see something come in at like CLT, and I make sure when you create your email that it's from a person, not the Equine Rescue Network or the Service Dog Project or New England College of Business. Have it from Janine Jacques, and then the subject line is ERC, and you're like, what's that? And who's Janine Jacques? Your chances of them opening are much greater, all I'm saying. But subject lines and titles and everything else when you're in blog, totally different thing. But be mysterious when you send out your emails. The thing that I find about being organic is you have to use a lot of graphics to get people interested. Have fun with your page. Be authentic. Make sure it's your voice. I talk to a lot of companies that have a schedule of postings for their that they have these calendars. You can have social media posting calendars that'll post all over the place, and they can get them through Hootsuite. They're all up in the cloud, so you can organize what you're posting when. And that's good for kind of baseline posts. Like every day I like to post on my social accounts. But I also like to post just fun things and interesting things and be authentic and be myself. So your phone becomes really the big key. Because I'm always on. Like the other day I was in Starbucks and there was, all the different, there's a green thing. There's a new choice at Starbucks. There's now a green sugary thing. Like, where'd that come from? What is that? And so I took a picture of that and I posted it up on social media and I tied it into the organization. And I was like, that kind of stuff makes you a real person. All right. And people want to interact. They don't want to interact with businesses. You guys think about it. Do you want to interact with a business even if you like that business? But you connect with businesses through the people. So be a person. And as much as you possibly can, be a person. All right, that's my big advice on that. Know who your audience is, and you can do that by, we don't want to get too technical, but every post that you have, if you go into Insights, if you're running a page, every post that you have on Facebook will show you the engagement. And I have engagement of stuff that's, 5,000 people like something. And then I'll have another post which 50 people like it. So you'll start to see right away, but it's either, in the social media world, and I've been doing this for a long time, there's very little in between it anymore. I'll either have like between less than 200, which, for a big page, that's not a lot, or over 3,000. There's very little in between, and that's because of the new edge ranking. If you start to get that volume, it'll go virally. It's really designed to make good content go viral, and it's designed to keep bad content at a minimum.
So I've had experiences where sometimes I'll get a lot of people liking a Facebook post to a link on my blog, and then I'll go to my analytics and I can tell that I'm not getting a lot of people through Facebook. And conversely, I've had experiences where not a lot of people are liking it, but it's blowing up on my actual site where I'm guessing people are clicking through but not liking it and not wanting to necessarily engage on Facebook or show that they're liking something.
Yeah.
How, in that case, I'm guessing Facebook is still allowing it to reach more people just because people are actually clicking on it, even though they're liking it. I'm just.
They're liking it. Yes, they're liking. Okay, so because your blog post, are you using WordPress or?
Yes.
Okay, so your WordPress, if people are liking your stuff here through some sort of plugin.
Like I use Google Analytics for my site, so I can see where people are coming from.
Yeah.
And there's one post in particular which was a politically charged post that received almost maybe 2 or 3 likes on Facebook, but it was one of my most visited blog posts I've ever written on my actual site.
Yeah.
And then I've had other posts where 1 million people will like it. I'm a food blogger, so a lot of people will like a recipe that I post, but then I'll go to my site and realize that Facebook isn't what's drawing people that day. So I'm just wondering about that discrepancy, because in the beginning you were talking about the Facebook algorithms and how if people are liking and engaging with something, then that'll make it more popular. But your Google Analytics is like the traffic to your site, and so I'm a little confused about. I'll post a link to my site on Facebook.
Yeah. Okay.
And a lot of people, I've had experiences where the likes on Facebook are not proportional with the people who are actually clicking through to my site.
It's because people pick up if it's a good post, they're going to pick up that post and share it with in other areas throughout the web.
Even if they're not liking it, because that's what I'm wondering is how are other people seeing it?
Your measure, don't worry about that. Your measure is the people. Like the ultimate measure is not whether people are liking your stuff or clicking the like. It's the Google Analytics. That's your answer. Because people can what'll happen is they'll go from Facebook to your blog, they'll read the blog, and they'll really like it. so that they might just grab the URL and bring it over someplace else, some other food network, and then you're getting shared in other places, but you don't even know that. So the Google Analytics is the place that you really focus. And if you're doing Google Analytics, then whatever's higher, do more of that. Write more about that. Whatever that recipe is, those people like to eat that.
I just think it's interesting because that one post in particular had a lot of visits through Facebook where people were clicking on my Facebook link, but they weren't physically liking it. And I suspected that they were doing that because it was a politically charged post and they didn't want to be affiliated with actually liking it. Or
I think I don't know how everybody else feels, but I don't like political stuff because I'm convinced someday that's going to be bad. But I don't think everybody else has that same theory.
No, we do.
But I mean, I don't know what you guys personally, but I stay in 2016. I do not bring up politics at dinner, at work, because it just turns out to be a complete disaster. It's a messy conversation. So maybe that's I don't like anything. I'm both.
I'm thinking about some of the things that I do in response to when I'm on Facebook, because I get a lot of stuff from my own friends. And I may not hit like, but I may share.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't mean that I don't like it.
Right.
The fact that I do share it means to me, at least when I do that, I do like it. I don't share it because I want people to make fun of it. And I think that you're right. How you measure